What is up guys, Free to Play Ryan here, and welcome to part 2 of the Blackrock Mountain review. There are 14 cards left, and I gotta go through all of them from Constructed and Arena, so let's jump in straight to it. First up we got Chromagus. It's an 8 mana 6/8. Whenever you draw a card, put another copy into your hand. I see this card being played in control type of decks. It's very control type of card, but it is really slow. In Arena I see this card being pretty good, but you won't see it that much because it is a legendary. Next up we got Demon Wrath. It's a 3 mana warlock spell. Deal 2 damage to all non-demon minions. I believe this card's going to be pretty good. It's pretty much a 3 mana consecrate. For Arena this card is going to be above average, just a little bit better than Hellfire I believe. It just does its job and it's a good AoE effect. Up next we got Dragon Consort. It's a 5 mana 5/5 Paladin class card. Battle Cry. The next dragon you play costs 2 less. This card alone makes Paladin dragons a good class in Constructed, I believe, and I reckon it'll be tried out and it'll be really a top tier deck Paladin dragons. For Arena this card will be just a 5 mana 5/5 and you might get a extra benefit with your fairy dragons or your azure drakes. Up next we got Druid of the Flame. It's a 3 mana 2/2, but you can transform it into a 5/2 or a 2/5. Most of the time you probably want that 2/5 just because of the health is better than the attack, but if you're at the end of the game and you want that extra 5 attack, you got that option. I believe this card won't be played in Constructed that much. It doesn't fit really many decks, except this does turn into a beast, so it might be in like the Druid of the Fang deck that hasn't worked yet and might work up soon. In Arena this card is pretty good because it can kill those 3/2s pretty easy. You'll just pick the 2/5 and call it a day. Up next we got Emperor Thaurissan. It's a 6 mana 5/5. At the end of the turn reduce your cost of your cards in your hand by 1. This card is pretty insane. You can just tell by the text. So on average you'll probably have like 5 to 6 cards in your hand. So for like the next turn that is 6 mana taken off. So think of this as like a 0 mana 5/5, and that is like crazy. This card will probably need a nerf after a couple of tries, I'm going to say. Probably, I'm just going to think of the nerf right now, maybe 7 mana or just like a 6 mana 4/4. Probably the 7 manas. In Arena this card would be pretty good. It'll probably be like a 1 mana 5/5 because you tend to have less cards in Arena, but it's still really good. Up next we got Fire Guard Destroyer. It's a Shaman class card. It's a 4 mana 3/6 battle cry. Gain 1/2/4 attack, and it's got an overload of 1. So this could be a 4/6 at worst, and this can go up to a 7/6. But for Constructed probably you want a 6/6 so it doesn't die to Big Game Hunter. That's a big card you have to play around. And I believe this card is pretty strong and puts Shaman mid-range back on the top tiers list, and it will make it pretty good. For Arena this card is also a top tier card. You pick this over the Hungry Dragon, the Chewing Yetis. You just pick it over many things because it's a really top tier card. Up next we got Gang Up. It's a 2 mana rogue card. Choose a minion, shuffle 3 copies of it to your deck. This card is pretty interesting. It's sort of a control-ish type of card, and rogue don't have a control type of deck. They're more tempo or really aggro. So I don't see this working in Constructed. In Arena it might work out. Like if you're going to go into the late game, this card will be pretty good. Next up we got Major Doomare Acusis. It's a 9 mana 9/7 Death Rattle. Replace your hero with Ragnaros the Fire Lord. If you haven't seen the Rag hero, here it is right now. So it's got 8 health, and its hero power is deal 8 damage to a random enemy. It's the same thing as Rag's effect, but it costs 2 mana. You can do it any time. This type of card is probably a fun card, just because something like Ragnaros and turning it yourself into 8 health is pretty weak, because you can die to so many things just in one go. For Arena this card will be pretty bad also, because there's so many mages out there that can just fireball you or pyro you. Up next we got Quickshot. It's a hunter card. It costs 2 mana to deal 3 damage, so that is average. But if your hand is empty you draw a card, so this is really good in those aggressive decks. This will just make those aggressive decks even better. For Arena this card is like a Frostbolt or a Dark Bomb, just a tiny bit better. Next up we got a very interesting card. It's called Resurrect. It's a 2 mana priest card. and the ability is to summon a random friendly minion that has died this turn. You probably want to play this in a late game priest, no costing things that cost probably 1 or 2 or even 3. Sometimes 4 is probably where you want to be at or higher. To be in this deck it has to have some purpose really, can't just be a 2 mana summon a 4/3 or something like that. I believe you'll start getting value if this summons like a 4/5 like a Yeti. For Arena this card's not going to be that great because you do have your 2 drops and you only get a 2 mana 2/3. So it's just average. Next up we have Revenge. It's a 2 mana Whirlwind effect, but if you have 12 health or less it deals 3 damage instead. I believe this card is pretty poor just because Whirlwind is not being played in any deck right now, so why would this card be just for the extra mana? That effect, that like if you have 12 health or less, means you're probably going to lose soon anyway, so this won't help out that much. For Arena this is just a worse Whirlwind and it won't help out one single bit. Next up we got Solemn Vigil. It's a Paladin class card. It's for 5 mana and you draw 2 cards, but it costs 1 less for each minion that's died this turn. This card combos really well with Muster for Battle and most other Paladin class cards. This card, I see it being normally a 3 mana draw 2 cards, that's his average, but probably 2 mana and 1 mana is really good for this card. In Arena you'll probably get this for 3 mana, not as like 2 or 1, just because of the minions on the board. Next we got Dragon Whelp. It's a 1 mana 2/1 dragon. Battlecry, if you're holding a dragon, gain 2 health. This is pretty good card. It's like Zombie Jail with no drawback. I think this will be tried out in the dragon decks and actually will work out just against those aggressive decks like a Face Hunter or a Mech Mage. In Arena this card is poor because of the 1 health and it can die pretty easily. And finally we got Volcanic Lumber. It's a 9 mana 7/8 taunt for a druid. It costs 1 less for each minion that has died that turn. I see this card being pretty poor because of that 9 mana. And in Druid you play pretty slow and you hardly kill that many minions in one turn. It's sort of like slow just progression. So I see this as being like a 7 mana 7/8 or a 8 mana 7/8. There's some combos out there that can do like Force of Nature, and if 5 things die you can play this on if you have 10 mana. But I just don't see this working out. In Arena this card is just a worse Ironbark Protector. So now I'm going to go through the top 3 cards and the bottom 3 cards from this expansion. We'll start with the bottom 3 cards of this expansion. For third last place I think is Lava Shock. Now Lava Shock is a Shaman card and I don't think this card will work out like people are saying. This Overload Shaman deck just doesn't have enough cards yet to make it work out, and it will be one of the worst decks out there. In second last place we have Axe Flinger. It's a warrior class card, 4 mana 2/5 is just not strong enough and the ability just isn't good enough. A Whirlwind Warrior is not probably going to happen anytime soon. And the worst card for Blackrock Mountain is Revenge. This is just a worse Whirlwind, but it costs that 1 extra mana and I just don't see any reason why to play this card over Whirlwind, but not many people are playing Whirlwind anyway, so this is why this card is last of the whole expansion. Alright, for the top 3 they became pretty close in this expansion, but we're going to start off with third place, and that is Volcanic Drake, a card that I think has been very strong in Shaman, Paladin and Warlock. This card will try it out in all 3 decks. I know I will be trying them in all 3 decks, and I think this card will be very good. Also this card is good in Arena, so that's why it is in the top 3. In second place we got Dragon King Sorcerer. This card is going to be incredible in Priest. I see it getting replaced than other cards. You might even resurrect this in Priest and that would be very good. Just get that 3/5 back that can get power shielded into a 4/8. And in first place, a card that I think should be nerfed is Emperor Thurison. It's just a really overpowered card that gives you advantage for the rest of the game. I see this in control decks, not so much in aggro decks. Or I could see this in a rogue conceal deck, so like a new Miracle maybe, or even a freeze mage deck that you just make your spells cost really low. Alright, that's the end of the expansion Thank you so much for watching this review series. I will be playing through Blackrock Mountain, the normal, the class, and the heroic challenges, and collecting all the cards and having so much fun, and uploading them to this channel in the next month of the expansion. Also, please like, comment, and subscribe. It helps me out a lot, guys. Please give me some feedback on this review series. It will be much appreciated. And I'll see you next time.